Hey guys, what's up? Excoundrel here. I know you might have seen me streaming earlier today. The stream videos are up on my YouTube channel, but I want to put out an educational video as well. I thought I'd cover Rules of Survival today, and I thought I'd look at one of the new rifles out in Rules of Survival. It's probably the most popular rifle, it's quite common on the new map, so I wanted to compare its damage and its recoil and see how it stacks up against some of the other rifles. Now, the rifle that is most like the ACR is the AR-15, so if you're used to using the AR-15, you'll find the ACR very similar. I want to compare it to the M4 though, because the M4 is probably the most common rifle in the game, and it's a good benchmark for how other rifles compare. So if you remember from my best rifle in Rules of Survival video, the M4's got a fire rate of 0.122, it fires one bullet every 0.122 seconds. The damage against a zero body armor at medium range is 92 to the head, 36 to the body, and 18 to the arms and legs. And it's got pretty moderate recoil. When I say moderate recoil, it's not crazy like the AK, but it does kind of go from side to side and has pretty decent vertical recoil too. Attachments, like I said, AR-15, very similar. You get a muzzle attachment, a grip attachment, a scope, and a mag. You don't get a stock attachment. So it stacks out exactly the same way as an AR-15 does. And that's not the only thing that you'll notice is similar between it and the AR-15, but we'll go into that when we get towards its damage. Now, I thought I'd show you some footage of the ACR in action, just because I was playing today and decided to play only with the ACR to try and get some footage of its recoil patterns, but I also thought it's good to see how it works in action as well, so you can see how this stacks up. The first kill that you're going to see is long range, so very, very long range shots, so you'll have to see the sort of the accuracy and how well it has recoil on single shot mode. I generally tend to use single shot mode for all of my rifles because it's easier to deal with them at long range. Unless I'm like at close range and want to spray, I'm always going to be using single shot mode. So you notice that someone's very far in the distance over there. I've only got it 2 times, but as I start to deal damage, I'm starting to realize that the damage on the ACR is very similar to the M4 and the AR-15. If you guys watched my best Rules of Survival rifle video, which compares the 4 classic Rules of Survival rifles, you'll notice that this damage is pretty much exactly the same as the damage coming from the AR-15 and the M4. Even when you see me shooting close range, this guy in the car, you'll notice that, again, very similar damage compared to the M4 and the AR-15. And when I say very similar, I mean exactly the same. They didn't change the damage values for the ACR. The damage values on the ACR are exactly the same as the M4 and the AR-15. So there is almost no difference between sort of how they operate in terms of where they deal damage versus armor and where they deal damage versus range. It does exactly the same damage as the M4 and the AR-15. It looks like it's a direct replacement for the AR-15 on the new map. And you'll notice that it has got very similar stats and very similar recoil to the AR-15 when we go to look into those later in the video. So you can see here, it's a pretty decent rifle to have. I actually mentioned in the best of Rules of Survival rifle videos that the AR-15 is actually probably the best rifle out of the classic rifles, except for the M14 EBR. The ACR is a very good rifle to get your hands on in the new map. It operates, like I said, very similarly to the AR-15. It's got a fire rate of 1, which means it fires 10 bullets every second, and that's 40 bullets over the course of 4 seconds if you have an extended mag, or 30 bullets over 3 seconds. If you guys watched my best rifle in Rules of Survival video, you guys might realize that the ACR is pretty much the AR-15, and you wouldn't be too far wrong. It genuinely is in terms of stats. The same fire rate, the same damage. The only thing that slightly differs is the recoil pattern, but even then the recoil pattern doesn't differ that much. Now, when we get to the recoil, we'll talk about it because it's a little bit more in depth, but realistically this gun is just the AR-15. So if you got used to the AR-15 on the old map, because I genuinely think the AR-15 is probably the best rifle in terms of the automatic rifles from the old map, then this is going to suit you very well on the new map. If you can get your hands on an ACR, it's going to sit very well. It deals exactly the same damage as the M4 and the AR-15. It's got a very good fire rate in automatic mode. And honestly, if you looked at some of those clips earlier, even in automatic, it's got pretty decent recoil patterns in terms it's quite easy to control. So let's talk about the recoil for a second. You'll notice that the single shot vertical recoil is a little bit higher maybe than the M4 and the AR-15, but the automatic recoil is much smoother in terms of horizontal. It takes slightly less time to get to your vertical peak on the vertical recoil, but the horizontal recoil is much thinner than pretty much any other weapon in the game. So you don't get too much horizontal recoil with the ACR, which is great. Really, really good, because the horizontal recoil is the one that's hardest to control. The vertical recoil you can control by swiping down on your screen. So in summary, this is basically the AR-15. It's got slightly less horizontal recoil and kicks slightly harder than the AR-15, but for all intents and purposes, it's basically the AR-15. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I hope you found it useful. The damage is always good to go through. I'm going to go through the damage from the other weapons as well, and hopefully we'll cover all the new weapons in time. See you soon.